Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday evening to you all. Hope you folks are doing awesome out there tonight and having yourselves a fantastic weekend out there so far. Thank y'all for taking time out your evening to hear about some weather. We do have a multi-day severe weather risk to discuss in tonight's video. We'll talk about Sunday first, then we'll talk about Monday, and then we'll talk about Tuesday. Now, tomorrow's risk for our Sunday is driven off something totally different than Monday and Tuesday's severe weather risk. So we'll discuss what's driving it, the main areas to watch out for. Sections of the Northeast do run that risk of damaging winds, kind of a heightened risk of damaging winds for tomorrow, really pinpointing the state of Pennsylvania, but there's areas surrounding Pennsylvania also that we need to watch out for. So we'll give you the latest information on that, and then we'll dive into Monday and Tuesday and what's driving all the ingredients together for what is likely going to be a 2-day significant severe weather risk period for areas of the middle of the country, then eventually getting into areas of the Midwest and the Mississippi Valley. So we're going to break it all down for you folks. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put those in the comments below. And we all look out for one another on here. We pray for one another, and more importantly, glorify God doing it. So let's get rocking and rolling. So we're going to start off by going old school with you folks, discuss the water vapor loop. For you folks that's been tuning in for a long time, know that I used to start out my videos showing you guys the water vapor loop, used to draw on this. So we're going to go old school, and I think now is as good of a time as ever to bring this back. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Let's make sure this is working. It is. So let's figure out all the pieces of what's driving this multi-day severe weather risk on the table here. So if you look up here, looks like clouds, which it pretty much is, but this is indicating moisture. The more wider colors is indicating more moist air in the atmosphere, and the more kind of doled out colors, the grays, it's more drier air in the atmosphere. So if you notice this flow up in Canada kind of going down and almost has kind of a southerly component to it as far as movement. This is coming out the northwest. This is kind of a northwesterly flow, more so moving west. More so moving east than south, though, but coming out the northwest or west, if that makes any sense. I'm starting to get confusing here. But in general, it's moving west to east and then coming down this area. So this is actually going to be the flow that creates a lift for thunderstorms tomorrow in Pennsylvania, even the southern tier of New York. And then we're going to watch some storm development in this region, kind of an embedded impulse of energy in this mid-level flow that's going to kind of dive down here. Everything kind of below this yellow line I just drew is basically an area that's under the influence of ridging. So we got this ridge built into this region. And that was an ugly arrow, wasn't it? But a ridge built into this region. This is what's bringing all this warm weather across the middle of the country right now. You got temperatures in the 80s, low 90s. I think it's gotten into the 80s into Minneapolis. So that's what's driving these well above average temperatures over the middle of the country and surrounding areas. Next thing you look at is what's going to drive Monday and Tuesday severe weather risk, and that is this area of low pressure. You see this thing spinning around right out here. This is going to continue to move across the southwest, the southern Rockies, and then eventually right across the middle of the plains, and then fully eject, become negatively tilted. Surface low will develop, and this is what's going to cause all the severe weather in the middle of your screen, the plain. So that's what's driving it. Those are the main puzzles. I hope that makes sense. I like to draw them on the screen every once in a while. Ridge build up, flow aloft, low pressure over here, going to dive down, and yeah. That's what's going on. So let's go on and get this off your screen. We'll quit geeking out with you super geek mode there, and we'll just talk about the radar. Now, what does this look like as far as the radar? Well, the pieces show on here pretty well. If you were to just look at the radar, where is it raining? Where is it storming? There's that flow up here. You see this energy kind of embedded into this mid-level flow up here. That's energy in the form of rain in the UP of Michigan, northern lower Michigan, and even some rain showers down into Wisconsin. We got some rain still spinning around here in the Northeast, Atlantic Canada. We still got this pesky area of low pressure up here that's still plaguing you guys' weather. This will move on out probably in the next day or so, but we do have a lot of rain, a lot of moisture out west, especially in California, and this is because that area of low pressure that I drew on your screen, that's right here. You see this area in white, that's more moisture in the atmosphere, and you can actually see that being depicted well on radar with actual rain falling across California, higher elevation snow in the Sierra Nevada where it is cold enough. The middle directly under this ridge, a little bit of flow, but it's pretty quiet. been a beautiful day across the central and southern tier of the country. So let's dive down. We'll dive into tomorrow's severe weather risk across really the state of Pennsylvania. But I mean, there is an enhanced risk that gets all the way into almost sections of like the Catskills. So we got a slight risk that does get into that area, southern sections of New York. But right here in the heart of PA, we have a level 3 out of 5 risk of severe weather, severe storms, an enhanced risk. This was upgraded earlier this afternoon. Pretty wild stuff. So what is this driven off of? Well, first we will discuss kind of who has the enhanced risk. Right here in the heart of PA, State College, Williamsport, over to Scranton. The slight risk, level 2 out of 5 risk, is Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, Allentown, up into sections of the Poconos, and then, like I said, into southern and even the valley sections of New York State. Then we got level 1 out of 5 risk that surrounds everybody else. So what is this driven off of? This is mainly driven off of damaging winds. So once you get a bump up to a 15% risk of strong winds to a 30% risk, that warrants an enhanced risk. That warrants basically an upgrade from a slight to an enhanced. So if you look right here in the red, that is a 30% chance of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And the yellow, a 15% risk of that. Okay, so damaging winds is really what's driving the enhanced risk for tomorrow. But one thing we cannot ignore is the tornado threat for tomorrow. There's also been an upgrade to this. We have a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. You know, big city like Pittsburgh, over to State College. Really, it's really, the Storm Prediction Center is really like in central to western PA here. 5% risk of a tornado. But this entire green area, that's a 2% risk of a tornado. And there is a hail threat also in this yellow area. That is a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. So Pennsylvania is going to be the epicenter of the most active weather tomorrow for sure. So what's driving this? We'll spend a little bit of time on this. There's that mid-level flow I'm talking about, kind of coming out the northwest. We call it a northwesterly flow. It's rounding the upper portion of this ridge. And in this case, you got a little embedded piece of energy. You see this line right here, this isobar. You see how it kind of bubbles up and ripples up right here. That is an area of energy, kind of an embedded area of energy in the flow. And that is what causes lift in the atmosphere. And then all of a sudden we get thunderstorms. So if we keep this going, mid-level flow is there. And then as we are starting to get, you can barely notice it, but you see these kind of ripples right here, these kind of bubbles up in these lines. That is that embedded area of energy in this flow. And you got a steady, 60, 70 knot mid-level jet right over this area. This is really what's driving the lift for these thunderstorms, lift meaning the development of these storms and the damaging wind risk. And it's right down here, right kind of the bottom section of this main flow up here, which is typically what happens with these kind of what I call ridge rider setups. And this continues. And you can actually see these ripples down here as the storms do shift to the south, to the southern sections of PA, where they will begin to weaken tomorrow evening. So definitely some energy embedded in this, enough mid-level flow, and this is going to create that lift for that thunderstorm development, really targeting the heart of Pennsylvania, and then that damaging wind threat. Next thing you look at is Cape levels. We'll see what it looks like for tomorrow. Cape spikes right in here. We got this little kind of nose of 1,000 joules per kilogram Cape right in here that noses right into western PA. We do have a lot of energy over here in Ohio, but are you going to get thunderstorm development over here? I do think you'll run a risk of some thunderstorms in Ohio, but I do think the highest risk area is right here where you have the best overlapping ingredients. I think your best moisture might be kind of pooling up here in Pennsylvania also. But you start to get into tomorrow afternoon, early tomorrow evening, you got definitely enough storm energy in the atmosphere to get these storms going all the way into sections of New York. Even these Cape levels, like reaching 500 joules per kilogram, that's enough energy in the atmosphere to get these storms going for sure. And if we can get any storms to actually fire in Ohio, they definitely have even more ample amount of fuel, Storm Cape, to really fire up these storms here. So definitely got the fuel in the atmosphere here, and then the storms will eat it all up. But if we take a look at what the radar could look like tomorrow, this is going to include all PA and then sections surrounding PA. Kind of some morning energy that you're dealing with up here. Could get some rumbles of thunder in Buffalo tomorrow morning. And you keep this going, And then we get into the afternoon, a little bit of a clearing, and then the initiation of these storms. They almost move almost like north to south. It's pretty wild. But you see these, this is like 6, 7 o'clock tomorrow afternoon and evening. Just you got to watch out for all these storms. They kind of try to develop right in northern PA, then they kind of sag south. But these will pack a punch. There's enough kinematics in the atmosphere, flow aloft, to really force this damaging wind a threat. That's why they put the enhanced risk up. So watch out for some damaging wind gusts. Pretty much everybody right in the heart of PA run the risk of this. And this entire line of storm stretches from one side of PA all the way to the other. So pretty wild stuff here. And they will kind of rumble for a few hours all the way past dinner time. And then by the time you get into about 9, 10 p.m., they're starting to get down to the Maryland, PA line. And I do think they will start to lose some steam as we get closer to midnight. Might be left over with some shower activity in like West Virginia, the Delmarva region. So, it doesn't look like much. It honestly looks like one sweep through, just one line of storms that sweeps on through. But just note that they will pack a punch. Now, if you look at the updraft Felicity swath with its tornado threat, and it does like the idea of what the Storm Prediction Center is showing, it really singles out this area right in here, shows some highlighted areas that indicate some rotation with some of these storms. And there is always the risk of tornadoes in kind of a ridge rider setup where you have flow on top of the ridge. Anytime you got flow, you do at least run a very small tornado risk. Anytime you got that ample amount of flow, it's, once you start to get deep into summer, you have very, very marginal flow aloft, but you have tons of storm fuel in the atmosphere. It's what we call pulse thunderstorms. Those happen mainly in the south. It's basically where those storms is basically the atmosphere just gets very unstable. They explode, but there's nothing to really force them one way or the other. So they explode and then they implode. But we're just not to that kind of season yet. That's when you get deeper in the summer. But definitely enough flow with these. So let's go on and switch it to Monday. So this is driven off something totally different. But we do have the enhanced risk that includes southern sections of Kansas, the heart of Oklahoma right here, which does include Oklahoma City, over to Woodward, Fort Sill, Norman, down to Wichita Falls, Texas, into sections of the Panhandle of Texas and northern Texas. Slight risk goes all the way from about the heart of Texas, west central areas of the state, all the way through the yellow areas you see in Oklahoma. Covers up, I would say, at least 80% of Kansas and a large chunk of Nebraska, even including Iowa now, western Iowa, even getting into Kansas City and sections of Missouri. So definitely a significant risk of, a risk of significant severe weather in this setup. And as of now, we only know that there is a 30% risk of severe weather within 25 miles of any given location in this red area, 15% risk of that in the yellow. And then if you look at the black outline region, we call this hatched, the hatch risk. That means that there is a 10% risk in this case of significant severe weather. And in this case, we don't know what they're going to drive the hatch risk off of. You're probably going to have hail. You're probably going to have, this is my prediction as we wake up tomorrow. Because at day 3, they don't break it down category wise. They just show, hey, there's a certain percent chance of severe weather. What they're probably going to do for tomorrow is they're probably going to open up a 30% risk of hail, a 10% risk of significant hail, and then you're probably going to have a 10% risk of a tornado. And that's probably going to be more so down into here. And then you're probably going to have a 30% risk of damaging winds and maybe a risk of significant winds. And then I do think there will be a 10% hatch risk of tornadoes. That's my call right now. I don't think they're going to drop a 15% risk of tornadoes as of now. But that's my call for now. That could change. But this is what we have right now. All right. And then we have day 4, which is Tuesday. There's a lot of chatter out there in the weather community that Tuesday might be worse than Monday. There's some reasons to agree with that also, but all we know is there's a 15% risk of severe weather within 25 miles of any given location in this entire yellow area. So what's driving this? And we're not going to stay as long on this as we have the last couple of videos. You see the area in orange? That's that high pressure that I was drawing on this map here just a second ago. That's where you got higher pressure. It's a ridge in place. This is what's bringing the warmer than average temperatures. Hence, in this case, why it looks like warmer colors on your screen. I think they do that for a reason. But Lower pressure is in the blue. You still got this pesky lower pressure over here in eastern Canada, areas of the Northeast. But you see this embedded area of blue right here. That is our upper low. That's exactly what this is right here. Except on this map, this is getting into tomorrow afternoon. So this spin has actually moved a little bit further eastward. So what happens here is this continues to chug along very slowly. It's cut off in the main flow up here. So it's just moving slow. Getting into Monday morning, this is chugging along across areas of the Southwest and areas of the Central and Southern Rockies. And then by the time you get into Monday evening, this is beginning to strengthen somewhat and get a little bit more of a neutral tilt to it, which means it's strengthening. You're probably going to get the development of a surface low with this amplifying trough. And this is moving in and just a very embedded, tight, impulsive energy, basically. So this continues to bring a very stout mid-level flow right at the base of this and the basically the eastern flank of this area of low pressure. And then we start to get into Monday night and Tuesday morning. This takes on a full-on negative tilt, which means you probably got an actual surface low associated with this that is strengthening. And then we start to get into Tuesday afternoon, and it's the same deal, guys. This is bringing a pretty stout, more broadened mid-level jet right over this area right in here, creating a lot of forcing for thunderstorms and even pulling up all that low-level moisture from the south out the Gulf of Mexico in this area. So all this Monday and Tuesday talk about severe weather is all driven off this blue blob. Another great way to look at this is that mid-level flow that I just talked about. Same thing we just showed for Pennsylvania. And here it is. You can see this mid-upper low right here over the western U.S. And we keep this going. We're getting into Monday morning. And then we get into Monday afternoon. And you see all the flow at the southern flank of this low right here. And then at the southeastern flank of it. And then here it comes. We call this the left exit region. It's basically where your best lift for thunderstorms is. And this continues. And we get into Monday evening, all this flow in the mid-levels is going right over the southern and central plains. And when is the storms going to initiate? That's a big question out there. Is it going to wait until like the sun setting in the plains? Then when is the initiation of these storms as the energy really fires in the atmosphere? But, we start to get into Tuesday. I think we'll have a lot of weather Monday night and the Tuesday morning. I don't think it's going to let up at all. In fact, I think it's going to take until the sun sets really Monday night before these storms truly get going across this threat area. But you get into Tuesday morning, this system's still raging, and there's the broadening of this mid-level jet right here stretching all the way. Probably two separate areas you watch out for. One up here in the Midwest and then one down here sort of Arkansas, western sections of Mississippi Valley. We'll have to watch this. But certainly a stout mid-level flow approaching 70 to 80 knots in this area. And then the system dramatically weakens as quickly as it's strengthened. But we look at that low-level moisture, thermodynamics, right? Your dew points, one of the things that support severe weather one way or the other. And one thing you'll note is you get into Sunday tomorrow, you already got this low-level moisture bubbling up. And then you get into Monday morning, this low-level moisture continues to bubble up all the way into Nebraska. You got this pooling of dew points into the 60s, pretty far north. And then by the time you get into Monday afternoon, dry line is beginning to set up in the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma, even somewhat into Kansas also, just not as tightly gradient. There's not as much of a tight gradient as far as a drop-off between moisture and dry air. This is your more classic dry line setup right down here, though. This is the chatter where they think if you're going to get any high-end tornadoes, it's going to be down here. That's where I think the highest tornado threat is going to be. But you can see it turns into a fully stacked vertically look of a dry line, this setup. Separation between desert bone dry air and then very moist Gulf of Mexico and southerly air right here. So that is one of the things driving this. And then the stage gets set for Tuesday also, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Stay on Monday for a second, the Monday night. And then you look at the storm energy that builds for this. Already Monday afternoon, pockets of Cape levels in the mixed layer Cape levels reaching over 2,500 joules per kilogram. And then we get into Monday evening. There it is. There's that dry line setup. You can see the separation between zero storm energy and then ample amounts of storm energy. And here it is. I mean, you got Cape levels. There's probably going to surpass 3,000 joules per kilogram mixed layer CAPE in this area. And then there's still plenty of storm fuel. I mean, this is 06Z Tuesday, literally the middle of the night, Monday night, getting to around midnight. Still plenty of fuel in the atmosphere, and then all the storms eat up all the fuel. So the next thing you look at is, what does the radar look like? We'll have better information on that tomorrow, but we will take a look at the Euro, and I will show you something interesting with this. There's the actual development of the surface low, with the strengthening trough becoming negatively tilted in response, a deepening low. And it does show, like, I know it just, you look at this and you're thinking, well, all I see is a splotch of yellow and orange. Those are your potential dry line supercells that form down here in the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma. You're probably going to already get the initiation of some storms that do form in this area also. But as you start to get into the nighttime hours, 06Z Tuesday, which is equivalent to, I mean, let's just say the middle of the night, about 1 a.m. Central Time or so, we still got storms down here. I do think there's going to be somewhat of a cap in place in Kansas. You might not get any rain in Kansas, any storms, but they'll probably maintain a significant risk of severe weather in this area just due to the fact that if any storms do get going in Kansas, they can produce all hazards. Plenty of forcing lifting for storms up here because you're close to the surface low. But man, you want to watch these down here. Whatever forms with these could produce all hazards. And then this turns what I think could be potentially linear as we're getting into the Monday night. It turns into an all-out line of storms potentially that's sweeping across the plains and all the states included in the plains. Then we're waking up Tuesday morning. We just got to see what's going on. I think we're waking up Tuesday morning with severe weather ongoing. But what happens for Tuesday? Tuesday morning we'll start off. We've already kind of showed you this. And there it is. That mid-level jet ramping up over this region right here. And I'm bringing plenty of flow aloft. Plenty of kinematics for severe weather over a pretty large area. And you know, you look at that low-level moisture, those dew points, and folks, they are supportive of severe weather. In fact, I would say that the moisture has actually got better looking for severe weather from the Midwest all the way down into areas of the South Central U.S., the Mississippi Valley region right here. And it looks like there is a little bit of a triple point developing in Iowa. So I do think there'll be two separate, kind of a bimodal severe weather risk. Two areas you really got to watch out for. One up here near the surface low triple point, and one down here, which can be kind of similar to what happens Monday night also. But plenty of pulling up of moisture as you're getting into Tuesday night. Dew points making it well into the low 60s all the way into the Midwest. So what could the storms look like in this region? Well, we need to really figure out Monday's evolution first. But here's a close look at Tuesday. You're waking up to already a ton of storms in Iowa, the Midwest. But here comes that surface low. These storms right here in Iowa could have a higher end tornado threat with them. And I know it's not really showing much down here in Missouri and Illinois, but there could definitely be storms developing down here too. But you want to watch out with these. This could be some sort of triple point setup. Triple point meaning basically where the best overlapping of your ingredients is right up to the flank of the surface low. But you want to watch these. You see these storms firing here in western Illinois all the way up into southern Wisconsin. These storms could be producing all hazards. We got to watch out what your low-level moisture return is going to be in this region. And then, you know, you dive down here into, let's see, give me one sec. We're going to do this on the fly. You know, we dive down here into a little bit further south, right? What is going to be the initiation of these storms down here? Not quite sure, but we get into Tuesday afternoon. There's those storms developing down here. But you notice there's kind of a weakness. There's not much going on in Missouri and southern Illinois. But you see these storms down here. These will have a better thermodynamic atmosphere to deal with. Better moisture return. Definitely just better thermodynamics. Higher CAPE levels. But, you know, what is going to be the flow down here? So, losing my voice. That's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. Tomorrow will be a big day with figuring this out just because it's the day before the event and we'll be inside all model guidance. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful night, and I'll talk to you in the morning.